Hello, everybody. It's Ed Rosenberg, and tonight I'm with Racheal Greer from Cascadia. Rachel, how are you doing tonight?
I am actually nursing a cold. So you may see me taking little breaks to wipe my nose in between things. It's springtime, so time for a cold, I guess.
Okay, so I hope you feel better real soon. Now, I'm trying to break a Guinness World Record of speaking to the most ex-Amazonians, and I know you're one of them. So you want to first of all tell us a little bit what you did on Amazon? A lot of people find that fascinating.
Yeah. So my first job at Amazon was actually in the fraud department. So I actually got my job because I speak German. And it was one of those random things where everyone told me when I was in grad school, they were like, you're never going to get a job with that degree because it's early modern European history, which is 1450 to 1789, or Renaissance to French Revolution. And in general, that's probably true. Most people do not get a job with the knowledge they gain in that kind of master's program. But one of the requirements was that I be proficient in German because the area of study was the Holy Roman Empire. And so I was actually able to get a job at Amazon with a degree that everyone told me would be useless. And so I was pretty proud of that. And then after about 2.5 years of working in that department, which is the same department that has seller performance and A to Z claims and all the stuff that folks are afraid of, I moved to product compliance and did recalls and product safety. So you may be familiar with recall notifications that come through. Also, the product safety team is who did the hoverboards situation last year, wherever all the hoverboards got taken down globally. So dealing with customer complaints about safety specifically. And then I managed the compliance for Amazon's private brands for a couple years. So all of the private brands, the most famous is Amazon Basics. But there's also clothing brands, and there's a food brand that I didn't work on, but I worked on the non-food part of the food brand, if that makes sense. And then the there was a outdoor living brand. I think it's been rolled into Amazon Basics now. They had too many brands. They've kind of squashed them. And then the last role that I had at Amazon was in global imports. So making sure that products had the right regulatory compliance and paperwork so they could be imported into Europe or into China or India. We launched Mexico while we were there. I think the only thing that we didn't do a lot of was Japan, and we did some in Japan as well, but it was a much smaller import market. There's a lot of difficulty with importing into Japan.
How many years were you there?
I was there for 7.5 years.
Wow.
So that's one of there's the meme on Facebook where they say, there's this thing at my job where if I'm good at my job, they give me someone else's. That's kind of how it is at Amazon. If you're successful, they're like, oh, sweet, you did that impossible thing. Well, how about this one too? And so I got to the point where by the time I left, I was responsible for, gosh, it was over 20 people in the corporate offices and in the operations teams in Bangalore, Beijing, and Romania. There were over 100 people who were part of the team that I was managing.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. Now, fine jewelry, from what I understand, you know a lot about fine jewelry and Amazon. I've heard a lot of people, it's very difficult. I have some specific questions, but you want to sort of give us a little bit of a broad overview of, first of all, why they make what they make you do and why they do it, please?
Yeah. So there are many different regulations that govern sale and import of goods into the US, and the particular ones that govern the fine jewelry category are the Federal Trade Commission rules on fine jewelry, specifically the stones and precious metals. And the Federal Trade Commission sued Amazon back in, I think, like 2010. I think that was the first time, and they won for mislabeling of bamboo products. And then they sued Amazon again, I think in 2014, for the charges to Kindles when kids were playing and they would hit buttons and then all of the charges would get accrued to the Kindle account. So FTC basically makes sure that there is truth in advertising claims is basically what they're focused on. So they're kind of like a consumer protection for products. And Amazon, I gave that background just to give you a sense of Amazon's history with the FTC, as in Amazon and the FTC don't get along super well. So when the FTC asks Amazon to fix something, then Amazon says, okay, just we'll give you a timeline and we'll fix it. And so that's what happened in fine jewelry. There were a number of concerns about the quality of items that were there, the truth of the claims of 14 karat or 24 karat gold, or if it was actually 925 silver, and so on and so forth. And so the process, I believe it was in 2014, there was a process undertaken to do an audit, and the results were so bad that they implemented the audit across the category, and now it's become a required part of selling in fine jewelry, which is to say that at least 2 to 3 times a year, at least 10 of your products will get sent to a lab and evaluated, and if any part of it fails, then depending on the kind of failure, you could just get a warning, or you could get booted out of fine jewelry and then have to submit your plan of action and then reapply. And the thing that's really frustrating about fine jewelry is you don't just submit the plan of action and then they give you back what you had before. You submit the plan of action so that you can be permitted to reapply. And the reapplication process can be 2 or 3 months.
I've seen that.
And that's if things are going well, and that's if everything tests properly. And it's painful. So the real reason for all this, of course, is from people selling things that weren't gold and calling it gold. But there's also a big problem with some of the people who do know jewelry and who were validating that it's actually precious metals and it's actually that kind of stone, and they were doing the clarity right and everything. Most of our clients at Cascadia are actually family jewelers, people who have been doing jewelry for a while, who know jewelry inside and out, and who are just confounded by Amazon because Amazon runs on a keyword basis. So everything that you input into the detail page is available for Amazon to use to enforce upon you. And the challenge there, of course, is that if you have a particular label for a stone that is typical in the jewelry industry, but that may not be permitted according to the FTC, then now you're in trouble because you used something that is not actually permitted.
Okay, so it's very complicated, and I get that. So let's say somebody's been in the industry 20 years, and so something which he would call an A, an apple, and Amazon would not
Green
recognize.
amethyst is a good example. So green amethyst is something that a lot of people call green amethyst, but the actual proper term is prasiolite. And Amazon will actually ding you for calling it green amethyst.
Right. There's some people have told me that they're not even going to bother. I mean, can you or someone like you go through the listing and explain and be 100% sure that what they saying, assuming everyone's honest, which I'm assuming they are. Otherwise, I mean, I don't assume everyone's honest, but assuming that if they're going to come to you, so you can set up the listing and word it a certain way that they would be compliant. Is that correct?
Right, exactly. So with the listing compliance, there's 2 issues with fine jewelry. The first is it actually what you say it is? If it's 925 silver, does it actually contain 92.5% silver? So that's the first issue. And that's what laboratory testing is for, to validate that. The second issue is, did you label it properly? And what we find is that usually the experienced jewelry sellers are always going to sell quality merchandise. That's not an issue. It's the labeling part that's an issue. And so we do go over listings, and it's kind of I don't know if the kind of meter for what is going to be a concern or what's not is what's different for what we do. But looking at the product and being like, okay, wait, that sounds like this other thing. I'm going to go research it, looking up an FTC. It's all in the ECFR, and you can look it all up. It's just that a lot of people are so accustomed to looking at things one way that it's really hard for them to change their perspective to looking at it based on the exact letter of the law, which is how Amazon does it. It's exactly what the law says to do. And that's a challenge for people who, FTC doesn't regulate this stuff very well. Amazon's actually regulating better than the FTC is.
Right. Wow. Okay, so I have a couple of specific questions I'm gonna ask you. The first one is, can you be successful in fine jewelry with a limited amount of SKUs, or do you need a huge catalog?
I think you have 2 questions to ask there, which is, first, where are you getting the products in this huge catalog? If you're able to buy from reputable dealers and resell their stuff to where you feel confident in what you're selling, well, then a huge catalog isn't a problem. But the way that the QA process works is Amazon just chooses 10 of your products, and if you've selected a product that you've had up there for like a year, you may not have actually done anything. Maybe it was a new supplier, and that's the one that they test. Then that can be a problem. So I think you can be successful either way. It's a question of, what do you want to do with your business? What we've seen be successful with a narrow listing is something that's a narrow listing base, is something where all of the listings that are available have some sort of more mass appeal. So something where multiple people can use it. It's not just something like a a very unusual product, like, I don't know, like a devil horns or something, maybe something that's more broadly applicable, like in terms of what people want to see. Another thing is if you have a fairly limited number of SKUs, but they're built around holidays, then you can get enough sales coming through with those SKUs to justify it. The real challenge for all jewelry sellers is going to be balancing the needs of making sure you're in compliance with your need to be profitable. And how you do that is really up to each seller and who your supplier base is, and are you importing or are you buying domestically? There's a lot of different features that go into that.
Right. Okay, here's another one. How come people buy from my competitor even though I'm cheaper? Is being cheap not a plus by shopping fine jewelry?
Price is only one piece of the whole puzzle. So say you're trying to sell products. The very first thing is people have to see that you're selling it. So you need traffic, right? Just because you're selling it at a low price doesn't mean people are actually going to your listing. So the very first thing is have people go to your listing. The second is once they've gotten to your listing, they need to actually want to buy your product. There are plenty of people who will click onto your listing because the title is good or the initial picture is good, but then maybe there aren't any secondary pictures or there aren't good bullet points describing what's going on. I see some listings where there's literally one straight ahead photo, it's like a straight portrait style photo of the jewelry, and then maybe 10, 15 words and bullets, and then that's it. And they're assuming that that's all that you need to do and people buy your stuff. And I'm sure there's some people who do get sales doing that, but most jewelry products are unbranded. And so you're not benefiting from the same thing as other parts of the catalog where you know the brand, you know what they're getting. You don't have to have it all explained to you. In jewelry, you need it explained to you. You need to know what it looks like. What does the back of the product look like? What is it actually, is it solid or is there a hollow back, or what is the actual thing that you're buying? And so even if you have a lower price, if someone else can show that their product solves the problem better, either through having more than one-sided picture, or maybe you really need it to come in a giftable box and you need it to be something where you can give it to your mom, you don't want to buy a box separately, and their listing has the picture of the box it comes in. Well, then now you know, okay, this one will come in the right box. I can just give it directly to my mom on Mother's Day.
Right. Okay, this is an interesting one. I sell a lot of natural stone jewelry, and it's impossible for the item to always be as pictured because of the nature of the stones. We do write in the bullet points and description that due to being natural stone, it might be off a little bit from the picture. Problem is that we get hit with a lot of not described and inauthentic complaints from seller performance. Is there a way around it? It's a good question.
To some degree there is. You can mitigate for it, I would say, is the best way to put it. So what I would suggest in that case, in the case of a broad spectrum of potential looking types of products for the same listing, is to actually do photography on multiple different samples. So you have your primary sample, which is the one that most of them will look like, and then actually add photographs. I think you have up to 9 or 10 photographs now. I forget the exact number, but it's a decent number of photographs. So you can put in a high resolution photograph showing the range. So when you have like a picture of all different kinds of diamonds, they show you what the super clear diamonds versus the not so clear diamonds, and you can see the range in between. And with diamonds, obviously, you can tell them exactly what the clarity or the color is. With other products, you can't. So then you would want to do something similar to explain to customers how the coloration is different. Where's the lightest color? Where's the darkest color? Or what's the most variated version or the most simple? Like if it's something like, I don't know, like tiger's eye. There's some of them that are really just dark brown and some of them that have a lot of nice striping. And so you'd have pictures of multiple examples of the work so that people can say, oh, okay, so I maybe get something similar to this. And that can cut down on it. I don't think it'll ever get rid of it entirely. We see so many customer complaints that are just stupid. And there's nothing you can do about that. There's nothing you can do to fix that. You can just mitigate for those customers who actually read and look at your listing.
Wow. I mean, what they could do is they could sell a bunch of USB cables and that'll limit the percentage of complaints. You know, I'm just thinking, like, as you're talking, if you're selling a bunch of $2,000 items, then the percentage of complaints, you know, you're not having a few hundred orders a day. So, you know, maybe that's something.
Yeah, whenever people are selling a lot of really high value items, I always suggest to sell, even if you don't make any money on them, sell a number of lower value items too, just for the volume, just because Amazon is such a numbers game. So if you have an ODR, you know, it's based on a percentage, right? It has to be lower than 1%. that means you need to have at least 100 orders in the last 90 days to have even one bad order. That's a pretty stiff order, you know. So like having something where if you do mostly high-end jewelry, having at least one listing that's just plain bands or small diamond chips or something that just has a high sell-through rate just to get those numbers going and protect your account from a numbers perspective. And Amazon's all algorithms, all numbers, so find a way to game it, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, now it's gonna be the last one. This is really good. I got a bunch more, but we'll do this another time. Average items that I sell is $400 to $2,000, which require insurance when I ship in case it gets lost. That means the buyer has to be home to sign the package. What are the best shipping methods for shipping jewelry with insurance that require a signature?
Yeah, this one I really wouldn't be able to give you an authoritative answer. I know Amazon uses UPS and USPS, but that's just what Amazon does. So both of those should probably be fine. With USPS, the nice thing is that you can actually go to the postal office the next day and sign for it. And so then there's that. I personally find that annoying, but at least then the product is safe.
Right. I'll throw in one last one here. People who sell jewelry as opposed to electronics don't have a brand name simply because they manufacture. The manufacturer of electronics, you're the distributor. Example, Sony, Panasonic. But jewelry, I make it on my own. So what's the best way to brand it? I mean, I guess you can brand jewelry. Can you have your own private label for jewelry? Yeah, right?
Yeah, you can absolutely brand jewelry items. I see there being two ways to do this. The first is with branded jewelry boxes. So having something unique that always shows up in that particular box. And that means investing a little bit in a nicer box. It could be that you put the brand on the bottom or you could emboss it on the top, something to where it's clear that it's coming from you, the jeweler. So this is something that, you know, big jewelers have often done. You have, say, Cartier or somebody like Tiffany. You know their brand, you know their boxes, you know their logos. And so you would do the same thing if you were selling on Amazon. The other thing that you can do to get kind of a brand identity going is to have a unique style of jewelry. So say you do something where it's a lot that's like rhodium plated sterling silver, or you have a lot of items that have, say, unique semi-precious stones, or you just deal in diamonds, or you just deal in turquoise, or something where you have something where this particular brand means I'm going to get a really high quality turquoise product, or I'm going to get a really cool, shiny, dark black style piece of jewelry. Something where you have something that's unique that the customer says, oh, wow, yeah, look at that cool piece of jewelry. Where did you get that from? And then the other, you know, someone asks their friend, whatever, and they say, oh, I got it from blah, blah, blah on Amazon. And then they can go look. Or someone who really happens to like that style of jewelry. Well, I don't know about you when you buy stuff for family members or for friends, but whenever I find that one of the things I buy for my husband is something that he likes, then I go back and I buy another one because that makes my life a lot easier. So something like that where you have some sort of consistency. What's difficult if you're trying to build a brand is to do something that's, you know, happy and pink right next to something that's dark and heavy. That's not going to go over very well.
Actually, that's great stuff, Rachel. Okay, so we'll leave it at that. And Rachel, I really appreciate you coming on, and I definitely want to do it again. I want to get some more questions, and I got some more now, and we'll definitely do it again. Okay?
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye.